Kumbata on the work we are doing in silencing the guns in the African continent is appreciated. Honorable Kumbata, when the President responded to questions for oral reply in this House last week regarding the peace and silencing the guns in the continent, he said the following, I quote, "We continue to work within the African Union to end several ongoing conflicts on our continent and restore constitutional and democratic government to countries that have recently experienced coups," close quote. He further said, "We are currently involved in supporting the people of Mozambique, people of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Sudan, and other countries to ensure that there is peace and stability in our continent." Honorable Speaker, we have undertaken a working visit to assess progress in implementing the revitalized agreement on conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. Following the working visit, which was last year, August, we have now appointed a facilitation task team to strengthen our work on finding lasting peace and support the people of South Sudan as they are planning to hold election in December of this year. With regards to Sudan, as South African government, we are a proponent of effective and consistent implementation of the African Union roadmap for the resolution of the crisis in Sudan and other unstable governments on the African continent. As you may be aware that since the conflict started, the shift to civilian rule has been slowed down, and many people have been killed and forced to move to nearby countries. The conflict has driven millions of Sudanese people to abandon their homes, displacing more than 12 million of them. Amidst mass displacement and reports of mass killings, humanitarian access has been severely curtailed, making it extremely hard for aid to reach vulnerable communities. The long-term political instability and economic constraint left 15.8 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. The violence has further worsened these circumstances, with about 25 million people, or more than half of Sudan's population, in need. Honorable Speaker, to this end, we will continue to engage both the government of the Sudan and the Rapid Support Forces with a view to encourage them to cease fire, create humanitarian corridors, and contribute to the existing mediation initiatives, particularly led by the African Union and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, as the South African government, we urge all African leaders to negotiate within the parameters and policy position of the African Union towards finding lasting peace on our continent. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Ms. A.N. Kumaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, given the possible impact of the war in Sudan on the stability of the region, will the South African government consider engagement with the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces to find a peaceful resolution of the conflict in Sudan? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. As I said in my earlier response that we are already engaging them. As I indicated that I undertook a trip to South Sudan last year, August, and I had a meeting with President Salva Kiir and also the 4 vice presidents. South Sudan have 5 vice presidents. So one was out of the country, but I met all the 4, as well as all other stakeholders that are involved in the initiative. So the engagement is already taking place. And earlier this year, I then appointed the facilitation task team, which has now also been to South Sudan. And we are planning a follow-up because all the engagement that we are busy with must ensure that the elections do take place in December of this year. So we will probably go back to South Sudan just to ensure that there is progress. Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Ms. E.L. Powell.
Thank you, Speaker. According to a recently published report, Russia is planning on building a logistics support center on Sudan's Red Sea coast with the goal of securing a naval base in order to improve its military posture in the region. Equally, the theocratic dictatorship of Iran is allegedly supplying drones to the Sudan armed forces. Russia and Iran's backing of the SAF risks undermining regional attempts to restore democracy and bring about lasting peace. Sudan is just one of many countries being targeted by anti-democratic forces intent on using fragile African states to wage a proxy war with the international community of democracies. Deputy President, given South Africa's commitment to advancing freedom, human rights, and democracy on the African continent, what is your position on efforts by anti-democratic forces to gain a foothold in the region in order to profiteer through destabilization? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Powell. Honorable Member, in conditions of war, there will be a number of people who come with their different objectives. So I'm not surprised that there would be some of the countries that will want to use the conflict there for other purposes that are not to support peace. So as a special envoy of the president in South Sudan, my responsibility is to ensure that there is peace in South Sudan. Working with all those stakeholders, including the African Union, that are busy pushing for peace. In fact, when I went to South Sudan initially last year, my plan was also to have meetings with President Museveni, President Kagame, and others who are the initiators of IGAD. As I said earlier, IGAD is now in control of that situation. And as South Africa, we support it. So we are going to make sure that other elements that are coming for other purposes that are not to seek peace don't have, a role in that situation. We will obviously do this with the cooperation of the stakeholders there, including the engagement with President Salva Kiir, who I must say is very committed to achieving peace and ensuring that there are elections at the end of this year. Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Mente Nguna.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, the President is making a reference to 15 million people that require humanitarian care and more than 25 million displaced. Now the question becomes, we hear everything that you have done in terms of the UN and in terms of the meeting, but we need practical solutions as a country that was once in a similar situation through apartheid. and other people came to our rescue and our care. What are the practical steps that are done by South Africa in terms of providing a relief to the citizens of Sudan in terms of healthcare, in terms of food supply, in terms of children and women being safe? What are the practical steps that we are providing as a country? And we must avoid a situation where we take resolutions and we respond to matters of this nature similarly
If you
to the
can
way
round
we
up,
did
Honourable
with
Member.
Israel. We took a resolution with Israel, but we
Honourable
never
Member, if you can
implemented it.
round up your
Thank you.
question, your time is up. Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Mente. The task team that we have appointed is looking at all these issues you are raising. Firstly, there is an African fund that has been established that we are using to support initiatives in South Sudan. One of the things we are doing is to train many of their people here at home. We have involved the Department of Justice to train people in various aspects of establishing a democratic government. We have trained people to set up an independent electoral commission as they are preparing for elections. So there are a number of initiatives that we are looking at, and we are also, as we go to South Sudan, we are looking at those issues of what is this impact on the people of South Sudan, what is an impact on the infrastructure. So yes, we will impress upon our task team to say to them, as we train them in these other aspects, let's look at issues of humanitarian aid. So remember, the United Nations and the Human Rights Commission is also there, is deployed there. I met them when I was there, and we are, of course, concerned about the humanitarian situation because, as I said, people get displaced. So there are a number of issues that we will deal with, and obviously later, once we have been to South Sudan again, we will share this information with the Honorable House. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Ngwangwa.
Deputy President, achieving lasting peace in Sudan does not only require parties to negotiate with adversaries, but also requires the mediators to deal with the interests of external role players and some economic superpowers whose interests and role in that conflict are beginning or increasingly overshadowing the internal Sudanese disagreement and are dominating the conflict. Whether in view of the fact that multiple mediation efforts have been initiated since the conflict started, for example, the Saudi, US, the AU, IGAD, and UN, as we've already indicated some of them, which have not yielded the desired results, whether South Africa has considered proposing via the AU a more coordinated mediation process, which will follow the principles that we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Deputy President.
Honorable Kwankwa, you're quite right. A more coordinated approach is necessary. So when we got there as South Africa, we understood that there are other players there already, particularly IGAD, and we decided we're going to coordinate our efforts with them. But also, perhaps the important thing that I should also indicate that obviously as we're busy with mediation and initiatives for peace, it's important that the country becomes stable and focus also on growing that economy. Those of you who know South Sudan will know that they are rich in oil. And one of the issues the President Salva Kiir raised was that please get the South African businesses to come here as well. We are building roads because